What I'm going to try and show you tonight is a way to turn and make a threaded finial onto a container, a box, whatever you want, without using threading tools. And the reason I kind of did this is it's a way, not everybody's comfortable with the idea of using the threading tools to cut threads. If that's for me, I just left. So what I'm going to show you tonight is this is one of the pieces that was in the last month's show and tell, and it's got can you see that? It's got an aluminum insert threaded, epoxied into the finial, and it allows me to thread it on, and nobody's the wiser. Now, you might say, why would I want to have a threaded finial on there? Well, say Aunt Betty's cat died, and Aunt Betty wants you to make an urn for Whiskers, and you want it so that it's somewhat sealed. This is a way to seal that container so that Whiskers' ashes don't get spread all over the kitchen floor. But I wanted to go back to the beginning because I think it's a great skill to learn how to use threading tools. If you haven't attempted it, it's a great learning skill, but it is a challenge. I highly recommend you give it a try with somebody that knows what they're doing, and that someone isn't me. I've had some success, but they do work really well, and it's a skill that once you develop it, it's just like riding a bike. Once you develop it, it should work out really good for you. This container has hand-cut threads done, with the threading tools, and it's 3/4 16 it's a 16 threads per inch is what I use for the tools, and I use 3/4. The reason I use 3/4 is so that I could just run a tap and tap the hole as opposed to cutting the female threads. And I know a lot of the big name turners, and they're right to a certain extent. They'll say, if you don't use standard sizes, then you don't have to do any measuring. And to me, it's a hell of a lot easier to measure something than it is to just say, well, that's close enough, and I'll just keep cutting threads until it fits. So my point is if you use standard sizes, everything to me is a lot easier. Yes, it does. You do have to do some measuring, but so and this is just another example of the same thing. It's this one actually is the better of them all. But the other advantage to it, not that you would do this very often, but say you got into making hollow forms with finials and you really liked them, and you made a whole bunch of them, and then you said, gee, I like that finial, but I think I'd like to put it on that box. I can just take that one off and screw it onto that one because it's a standard thread. They're all the same. Whereas if you hand cut the threads, they're pretty much, if you don't have a size, they may thread together, but they're not going to thread to that one, or they're mated together and they have to stay together for life. So this way here you can kind of switch around a little bit. We all have, most of us anyway, have one of these. It's a one-way center with 3/4 10 threads on the outside of the spindle. I highly recommend you buy. What I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to cut 3/4 10 threads. That's 3/4 inch 10 threads per inch. That's what this thread is. If you go out and buy a tap to do what I'm going to do tonight, hopefully going to do, I should say, and then down the road you want to make special collars or something to fit on here, you've got a tap already to do that. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to create the insert that gets made to put in there. But what I'm going to do before I do that is pass this around so you can see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to make the insert out of brass. If I can find my chuck key. The the challenge, this is probably the most challenging part, is trying to make this insert. And I did this at home on the exact same lathe, so I'd be showing you exactly how I did it at home, and you could see some of the issues that I ran into. So typically, at home, when I want to make the insert, I'm fortunate in the fact that I was a machinist my whole life, and I have a metal turning lathe, an engine lathe that I make them on. So there's no problems with chatter and all that sort of stuff. Here, you're holding the tools, and it can get a little dicey, as you're going to see in a few minutes. So what I do is I'm going to try and make the insert about 5/8 of an inch long. I've got it sticking out away from the jaws it's about 1 1/8 or so. The reason I'm out so far is, and I found out this the hard way the other day, is when I get to what I'm going to do in the backside here, there's a detail tool that I'm going to use to kind of get a relief down in here, and it can get caught in the track of that thread, and depending on how fast you're running, it can get over to those chuck jaws in a real hurry. So I had it happen last week. After the demo, if you come up and look at the front of my jaws, they're a little shorter than they used to be. So let's see. That's tight. I also padded the jaws with just some electrician's tape. Not sure it really helps all that much, but it does cut down on the marring of the threads. And the brass material seems to work better. I've tried making them out of aluminum, and I quite honestly, I thought the aluminum would be easier, but it actually turns out that the brass was. So I'm going to do a brass one. So let's see what we can do here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to center drill, and then I'm going to drill a hole. I'm out of sync. I'm going to center drill this. If anybody's never used a center drill, they're a great invention, except that lathe is way out of whack. Let's see what happens here. So I'm just putting a spot in there just to give me something to line up, but I noticed that this is way out of line with the spindle. So we'll see what this does. No, I'm out of sync again. Never mind. What was the question? I'm sorry. It's brass. It's just threaded rod that I bought. It's brass. I'm gonna bring a live center up against it to support it. I'm gonna put a relief in the back side at approximately 5/8 of an inch, my length, and then I'm gonna part in with a 1/16 cutoff tool to create a flat spot on the back. Then I'm gonna drill a hole through it. The reason I put the hole through is number one, it makes it, I think, look better. It lightens it up a little bit. But it also, when you go to epoxy this into the finial, it gives the epoxy somewhere to go up inside where the hole is, as opposed to running out all over the surface that you want to try and keep as clean as possible. So, but that's just plain brass threaded rod, aluminum threaded rod. You can get it I'm sure it's on Amazon and all those kind of places. I ended up buying mine at MSC because somebody else was buying some stuff there, and I said, while you're getting it, get it for me. Could you can. The thread's different. Yeah, you can use a thread. It's just a different thread, that's all. Right, but you've got to come up with some way to match the thread in the hole, because it's not the same thread. Those pipe threads are, even if it's a straight nipple, it's not a standard thread like this. It's a different pitch thread. The pipe threads typically, and I don't know what the numbers are, but like a tapered pipe thread typically is 11.5 threads per inch as opposed to 10. and they're not going to mate. It's not going to go together. So that's why I didn't use a fitting. You can do that if you can come up with the right tap to match that thread, or figure out a way to cut it by hand. Oh, there it is. Okay, never mind. I kind of did this all in the last couple of days because I kept changing the way I thought it would work best. And the live center that I was going to use, I changed it out this morning, and I just was standing here drawing a blank because I couldn't figure out what I forgot. But I did. I forgot it on purpose, actually. So I'm just bringing a live center up against it to support it, to help support it, while I try and create this relief back there. And as I said, this is probably the worst part of the whole thing. So if I can get this to happen without losing any fingers, I'll be happy. So, can you see that? Everybody has the carbide tools, or not everybody, but a lot of people probably have, and this is the detail. And if you're like me, I probably use that. I've had it for about 6 years. I've probably used it 3 times. And this is what I'm going to use to go in here and create a relief. What it does is it's going to remove some material, but it's also going to create a chamfer on the back side of that thread, so it's not a heavy burr on there. And as you can hear it squeaking, that's because the spindle on this lathe is so far out of line that it's kind of rubbing on the edge. But let's see if that's going to work. All right, let's see. So I'm going to say that that's about 5/8 right there. There's nothing technical about this, and I'm just slowly, very light cuts, putting a relief in here. And if I come on this side and feed down, chances of it grabbing the tool are a little bit less, and I'm a little high, so let's lower that. And I gotta say, it's working even better than it did at home so far. There it is. All right, so I'm just gonna go in about that far. And I'm just knocking that. Then I'll take and put what I hope is going to be a somewhat straight. And the only reason I want to get a little straight, flat on there, because you'll see in the next step. I want that to sit fairly flush in the recess that I'm going to put in the back end of the finial. So that is down, I think, below the diameter that the drill is going to do. So I put the relief in like that, just to make sure. Perfect. I put the relief like that so that when I take the drill now, I'm going to drill through. I'm actually going to knock this burr off the front before I do that. But I'm going to drill through, and when I drill through, it'll break into where I just put that relief and pop the piece off. Make sense? As I say at home in my engine lathe, it's a lot easier because you get this big beefy thing and you can just kind of bang it through. I passed around, well, I'll wait till I get to that point. Never mind. I've got backups with me that are already done, so if I blow something up, I got something to go back to. I'm just going to clean this lead off from the last drill. I want that to look somewhat flat and clean. And then I'm going to do the same thing I did on the back side with this tool. I'm just going to kind of blend the lead chamfer on there. Just like that. So if I want to, before I get too carried away, there's a little bit of chatter and a burr right on the front edge of this. So a quick way to get rid of that is to, if you have reverse on your lathe, is you run your lathe backwards. This is a 3-corner file, or triangle file, whatever you want to call it. It's typically for going in and cleaning a burr out of a thread. And by running the lathe backwards to remove that burr, and I put this on the lathe and on the piece in the threads, and it feeds it away from the chuck and off the end of the piece. And that will take any light burr that you might have on that lead edge away. That make sense? It's a little trick I learned in reform school. Not yet. I'm still working on it. Yeah, I'm only out for the night, so. So when I get to that, just before I get to that inside, actually I'm going to stop now before I go too far. I just want to break that front edge. I want to round that over so that it's not sharp, because this is the edge that's going to be sticking out that you're going to have contact with if you ever taken that out. So I just take what I call a whirligig. I think they call them deburring tools or something like that, and a bit of emery paper, and perfect. Almost think I knew what I was doing. All right, now let's see if we can get that to pop off of there. This drill is just under 9/16 for a 3/4 inch threaded rod. You don't want to be, this could be a 1/2 inch. This could be any size up to like 9/16 or a little bigger, but you don't want to go too much bigger than 9/16 because then you start to weaken it down at the root of the thread. So it drilled through and it popped off. Now if it'll come off the drill, oh yeah, that's good. So there's my insert. So now, sorry about that. Now, and again, I did it on this lathe. I'm going to do everything I need to do, hopefully, with this chuck. So you don't have to keep changing things around. If you were a tool junkie like most of us are, and you happen to buy a collet fixture that you can put on here, they're all Craft Supply and all those guys have them, and they hold what's called an ER32 collet. And you could get, if you had one of those fixtures with a 3/4 inch collet, and you could hold on to that in a collet, it's much more secure than this 4 points because you've got complete grip on it like this. So it probably would cut down on any chatter that I had, although the chatter wasn't too bad tonight. But that's just another way. But I want to try and do everything all in one shot. What do I got to do next? Okay. We're going to put a little recess in. And I didn't bring one with, but I'm going to put a little recess in here that'll fit into like that. Can you see that? And that's step 2. And I got to tell you, I was a little nervous starting out, but now that I'm past that thing, everything else is going to be a piece of cake. Well, now that I say that, you know what'll happen. While I'm changing things around, though, something I meant to bring up when Bob was introducing or asking the folks that are here to visit is this lady Joan. If you ever get a chance to go, I was fortunate enough a number of years ago to have a friend of mine take me over to her shop when I was thinking about whether to buy a one-way or a robust or a Powermatic or what to buy. He said, I know this lady. I know a lady over in Whitensville that does architectural turning. So he arranged for me to go over. Shopping. It's really something to go see. The size of the work she's doing, it was incredible. All right, so I'm going to take and just flatten off that face a little bit. Actually, I'm going to take and make it a little bit of a cove. Not very much. I don't care how about run out here. There's plenty of extra wood. I just want to get a flat surface. For 2 reasons. I want that surface to be flat so when it screws onto the collar they mate well. Plus, I'm going to drill a hole with another drill. I'm going to drill a hole in here, and I don't, if this surface, this one's not bad, but if it was doing this, that drill's going to do this. So I want to get that flat. The other, another reason why I think this is a good approach to doing stuff like this is we don't all have the desire to buy like African blackwood and things like that, which are, this is bloodwood, these two are African blackwood, and that wood's kind of expensive. And say you had some wood you wanted to make this finial out of, that's softer, it really won't accept the hand cut threads. This is basswood, pretty soft. I know it won't take a thread because I've tried threading it. So this way here, if you had, I'm just using basswood as an example, but if you had, you know, Aunt Mabel's pine that she wanted the finial on Whisker's box to be made out of, you can use pine and do it with this. Thank you, Bob. So, again, that's another reason to go through this whole process. So I forgot my scale. I don't know what I did with that, but so okay. I'm a little high at the corners, a little bit of a hollow to it. Exactly what I wanted it to do. So let's. Now this relief or this counterbore that I'm going to put in there doesn't need to be very deep. I'm going to go. I've got that piece is about 5/8 of an inch. I'm going to put about a 1/4 inch counterbore in there, and that'll leave about 3/8 of an inch sticking out of the. Let's do this. 3/8 of an inch sticking out thread to thread into the collar. Wow, it's amazing how far off that is. Okay. So the threaded rod is 3/4 diameter. I'm going to put a 3/4 inch hole in here. It should fit because the threaded rod always is a little bit undersized. So what I do to get my 1/4 inch depth, you know, you can use the scale on here, but with this particular lathe, at least with mine at home, and I think this is the same, each turn of the crank, I got my drill down to my full diameter. So each turn of that crank is a 1/16 of an inch. There's one, there's an 1/8, 3/16, and there's a 1/4. But I already see I got a big problem. That hole drilled way, way oversized. So, as you can see, well, it's not as bad as I thought, but it's, I wanted that to be a little bit better fit, only for the fact that it will help align the threads and everything kind of stay somewhat in alignment. But it's 15 thousandths oversized, so if you don't tell anybody, I won't. Keep it a secret. It's our little secret. No, it's the spindle. This alignment needs, the tailstock needs to go that way, about 15 thousandths. But it's good enough for what we're doing here because I'm not going to glue it in anyway. I've already got one glued. So you drill that, and then you say to yourself, okay, now I got a drill point in there, and I want to create just a little bit of a flat for that insert to bump up against. So you go to a flea market or an antique shop, and you walk around, and the other day, believe it or not, last Saturday, my wife and I were in an antique shop up in Maine, and that was in a booth for $1.99. I said, that's exactly what I need to do, what I'm going to do right now. So I want to get just a little bit more of a flat in there, and I actually ended up drilling a little deeper than I thought I was going to, but doesn't really matter. So we got to get this off. Get that out of my way for a minute. And I am just going to go in there and go Just like that. That's all I'm going to do. For $1.99, I just did that. That's right. So imagine you're at home or you're in your shop and you've mixed up a little bit of epoxy, and I would not recommend 5-minute epoxy, but that's up to you. You use what you want to do. I use a West Systems that it's a 24-hour set. I just put a little epoxy in there. I put a little. Oh, the other thing I was going to suggest too is with that 3/4 file that I was using to clean out the threads, if you just take that file and just run a few cuts this way, it's good. This is what we were talking about. It'll give it a little more. It gives the epoxy a little more bite, something to grab a hold of for twisting and torquing. Not that there's a lot of torque on this thing, but it'll help. And you epoxy that in. Wait till tomorrow. When tomorrow comes, it comes out of the box and it looks like that. And you say to yourself, wow, how the hell did he do that? He started with a brass one and now it's aluminum. How did he do that? It's magic. So the next thing I want to do, the next thing we got to do, and the other thing you want to do is, you don't have to do this, but obviously I've got some metal shavings in my wood shavings. So if you're saving your wood shavings to use for kitty litter or something, you might want to clean up before and after you do the brass. Okay. Yeah, that's how I. Believe it or not, a related story as I think a lot of you know, I have a one-way that they don't give away. They don't give those things away. And how I paid for that one-way is my brothers and I used to own a machine shop, and we sold our scrap, and we always got cash for our scrap. My third of the scrap price, the scrap money that we got, is what paid for my one-way. Took a lot of years of saving, but I finally got, I got close anyway. One day I came home to my wife, and actually it was after I had been at your house shortly afterwards. I know you don't know any of this, but I remember it. And I said, I got the lathe, I know which one I'm buying. She says, have you got enough money? I said, not yet, but I'm buying it anyway. She said, go for it. Okay. So, how this is going to work, because that's going to be tough. Okay. So I'm going to take, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take everything out of here so I don't have to look through that bag. That's what I'm going to do. And hopefully I can find, there it is. One of actually the last time I did a demo for the club was on the big lathe, and as everybody remembers, that was the night the tailstock kept going that way, and the tool rest kept going that way, and the chuck kept going that way. One of the things I tried to do was to turn I was turning a four-cornered bowl, square bowl, and I couldn't get it. I wanted to just drive it off the face of the jaws, and it kept slipping. It was, I believe, because the tailstock was heading in the wrong direction. So I came up with a fix for that. Well, hopefully the fix is that this one won't slide that way. But something to help drive it a little bit was I set my jaws at about 2 inches to the outside, and I put a 60 grit 2-inch disc up there, and I bring this up to center, and that should drive it enough so that I can put a little tenon on there. I'm gonna put a little tenon on there. That'll give me something to hold on to, and make sure everything spins. And I just thought of it, so hopefully I'm not going to get arrested or go to jail, but I'm not going to wear a face shield. I probably should right now. All right, I'll put it on. I was going to say, I'm turning small things, but I'll put it on for this, and then I'll put it on for one other thing. And other than that, I'm not going to wear it. This doesn't need to be very big. Can you hear me? Guess I should have sharpened that better. Where'd that go? Don't worry about it. I don't need it. Don't worry about it. No big deal. This is the one thing that's going to go haywire if anything does. Perfect. That's all I need. Pop that off. Turn it around. Stick it in there like such. That tenon's big enough if I need it when I get to the point where I want to fit it into the... This is the hollow form I'm going to fit it to. It's not quite done yet, but it's for demonstration purpose. For demonstration purposes only, it's done. I've still got enough material there if I want to use that. I'm probably going to remove it all, but okay. What I'm gonna drill and tap. I'm actually gonna face that off. Then I'm gonna drill and tap the hole here. Then I'm gonna use that to hold the finial while I turn it. So that way there, everything will be concentric and in line, and theoretically all it'll all look right when I get back to putting everything in and out of it. Again, I want that to be just a slight concavity to it. More than I need, but good enough. All right, this is going to be for a 3/4 inch, 10 threads per inch. The hole needs to be, I forget the exact size. It's like 23/30 seconds or something like that. This is a 11/16. It's a little big. It doesn't leave a full thread, but you don't need a full thread for something like this. We're just using it for locating and staying in. It's not like you're going to have a bulldozer or a lug nut or something attached to it. So this will give us enough thread for the finial to thread into, yet not bind up. It's going to be even less because the drill's off center, but I think it'll still work. I'm going to drill right through and slowly break through. Something I neglected to mention when I was doing it, and it just came to me, but as an FYI, I guess, when you're drilling brass, I was drilling the brass insert, and it wouldn't have been a problem tonight because I was drilling up to that shoulder. But if say you decided you wanted to take this and cut it on that with a hacksaw, and then hold it in the chuck and just drill through. If you have a brand new dead sharp drill with brass, more often than not, when you break through, it's going to grab that drill and suck it in. So if you dull the drill, just take a stone. Say you've got a brand new drill and it's sharp, and you know you're going to drill brass with it. Just take a stone and just hone 90 degrees to the cutting edge. Just holding the slightest bit of a flat on there. Then it won't grab and suck it through. Bronze and brass are notorious for that. What's that? The drill I just drilled is 11/16. It's a little big for the standard size for that thread, but it does work. So I'm going to just quickly, yeah, we can use that. Just going to put a little bit of a lead chamfer on that hole. What that'll do is allow the tap to cut the threads and not leave a big, hopefully not leave a heavy burr on that outside edge. I brought two. This is the 3/4 10 tap. This is a starter tap. It's got a long lead on it. If you buy one, I would suggest you buy a bottoming tap. It's much more versatile. This is strictly for through holes, but it's good for this. So I'm using the tailstock right now. I'm just getting everything lined up. So as close as the tailstock's going to allow us, that tap is lined up straight with the hole. I'm going to take the wrench and I'm going to try and keep the center up with the tap as I thread it in. Loosen your tailstock. The tailstock will you want to keep the tailstock engaged with the tap. But if you tighten your tailstock and you're trying to keep up with it or keep it in sync with itself, you could potentially push against it and actually tear the threads out. If you loosen that, then it won't do that. The tap have a, yeah, there's a center point in the back end of the tap, so it helps the live center to keep it straight. Yeah, but by not having this clamped down, the tailstock can move back as opposed to the tap moving forward. This kind of falls into that category of watching paint dry, doesn't it? So I'm in far enough now that I'm just going to do this. And there's my chuck to hold on to my finial. Okay, where's my finial? So, as I said, this is basswood. Nice, soft. I don't turn a lot of it, but I had some given to me a while ago, and I said, oh, I know what I was going to do. I did it at home. I'm not sure if it's necessary or not, and I don't know if I brought the thing, but I have a little nylon washer that I put between it, and I did it with it and I did it without it, and it didn't seem to make a lot of difference. So I can't find it, so we're not going to use it. It's that simple. So I've got that about that tight. You don't want to get it too tight, because once it's round, it's going to be harder to get off of there. So I'm just putting it up just about like that. I'm going to bring my tailstock up, and ever so slightly, just put it on the end of the part. I can put a little more pressure on it just to get it round, and then I'm going to actually back that off so that it's just barely touching here, and support it while I turn the finial. What time is it? I think we're good. We still good on time? I don't know what time we. That clock's not right, is it? Did I just knock that out of whack? I'm just roughing it down round, get it somewhere near where I want it to be. out here. Then I'm gonna come back in with the bowl gouge and just clean up down in here. Well, let's do this. I don't know what size I want that collar to be yet. So we'll just get it round so that it's true. If nothing else, it makes me feel better that I got something round that I can look at. That should be good. I'm going to take this and just clean that up. Okay. You can see I'm not square. I don't know why that is, but pretend like it's square. Okay, that's enough with the face shield. Let's get rid of that. Now I can see what I'm doing. All right, again, like I said before, I'm going to just back that off ever so slightly, put pressure on it. That supports it out here while I do the turning. If you've never, most of us have made finials, but if you've never made a finial before, I always want to start out here and work my way back. Gives the mass back here, supports everything as you're working your way back towards the spindle. So let's, first thing I'm going to do is just get the end down where I want it, somewhere near where I think I want it. Now I'm going to make a finial like this tonight. Hopefully I'm going to make a finial like this tonight with the little, whatever you want to call it, on the top. That's not the point of the demonstration, is to say this is how you ought to make your finials. It's just the way I'm showing you how to make the collar and the finial together, and it's a style that I like. But you feel free to put a little onion on the top, or a teardrop, or a whatever you want to put out there, spaceship. I mean, Cindy Drozda makes all kinds of cool things, but I just like the looks of that thing. I'm going to turn this down to about 3/8 diameter. That looks about right. And then I'm going to take a little more out. I'm going to probably lose 3/8 of an inch off the length of this thing, maybe not quite that much, but so I'm just going to bring it down, bring it down, bring it down a little bit more. See, there's no tailstock pressure per se. I can stop that, yet it seems to be supporting it pretty well. I just work a little bit at a time, light cuts. My tool rest might be a little high. Can't rush it. It's not being driven very hard, very soundly, and we're getting a little thin down here. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, I'm pretty happy with it. I think that'll look right. Come on. Some of the real good finial turners. I find that very interesting to watch them. I think the first time I saw somebody actually turn a finial was, I don't know if it was Mike Mahoney or who it was. Somebody came to club one time and turned a really thin finial. I thought that was just the coolest thing. Huh? It might have been her. Yeah. She did come to club, didn't she? Yeah, but nobody was paying attention to the turning that night. So I'm gonna probably not get too carried away with this thing, because I'm just, again, this is more to see what you can do with that being held like that. Pay attention to what I'm doing. I'm going to end up eating this thing. All right. So, just to be, I'm not going to do a lot of sanding, but I am going to try and clean this up just a touch. Doesn't need a lot. It's not as smooth as I would like it to be, but it's going to work. For demonstration purposes only. All right. Let's start thinking about where the onion's going to go and where the onion's going to start and end. And how big it's going to be. It's way too big right now. So let's get all this out of here. All right. Looks like it's a little more than 3/4, and that's what I'm shooting for, so let's go. See, I did all that measuring when I was cutting the threads and doing all, making sure everything was to standard sizes. That's so I wouldn't have to measure anything out here. I can just make it whatever I want now. And I really didn't do a lot of measuring. It's just a matter of figuring when it comes to cutting the tab. There's standard drill sizes and standard threads. All right, let's leave that. Let's create a little bit pleasing shape here. That is ugly. Well, I got a little anxious, so it's not going to be a pretty finial. So we won't spend a lot of time. I got too thin and it started wobbling, but that's all right. You get the gist of what I'm trying to show you. That it is possible to hold on to it this way and get it to come out somewhat what I'm looking for. Now we'll just kind of blend everything together, hopefully. If I can just slow myself down a little bit. The other thing that is possible by doing this, like I was saying earlier about not having to, either access to or desire to spend the money on African blackwood and things like that, is these softwoods like this, basswood, or even maple. You can color it any color you want. With all the different dyes and things that are out there now, you can make it look like it's real ebony. Or you can make it look like it's fluorescent blue, whatever makes it work for you. Alright, this is kind of like no fun to watch, so I'm going to leave it. We'll just put a little cove area down here somehow. Or we might just do this. Yeah, that's not what I wanted. Couple of small cuts right in there like that. All right, I'm going to stop there for now, and I'm going to focus on getting the blend between these two to, oh, that's what's wrong. Ah, sacre bleu. How'd that do? That came loose. All right. That's all right. I won't tell. No, I'm sorry for my house. So I want that collar to be something bigger than the flat that I have on here, which is about a little over 2 1/8. There again, that's just what I have on this piece. You may have a turning that you want to make, and you want to put a recess in here and fit the finial into the collar into that. That's in the design process. This is just being made to fit this piece, and so that you can see how it all works. So, but my point being is, that's where you get to use your imagination to make that do whatever you want it to do. So I'm going to make this piece about right now it's about 2.5 inch diameter there. I'm going to make that about 2 1/4. How's that look? About where I want to be? Perfect. Oh, God. Okay. Now, I don't know. It's close enough. I'm just going to put a little bit of a sweep in it. And now, the thing you got to remember, well, the thing I got to remember, because I almost forgot, is you've got a piece threaded in there. So you can't just sweep into it. You've got to account for that to being in there. So I've got a little bit of a sweep on this surface. It's not exactly, well, actually I can fix that a little bit. That goes right there. That goes right there. That goes right there. Okay, we're going to leave that right like that. And we're just going to redesign things a little bit here. Again, you've got that threaded insert, so if I kept going, I was going to cut right into that. So I'm going to leave a little bulb here. And I am going to take that, just round it in. Not the prettiest finial. On that piece I sent around earlier in the beginning, I don't know if anybody noticed, but there's blue snoogies on the knob, and that's from, if you noticed, the epoxy was blue. And if you dye the epoxy, which the whole idea, oh yeah, that'll look cool, I'll dye it, that'll look really cool, which it looks okay. But it also soaks up in the end grain, and there it is. So I suggest if you're going to color it, it doesn't really matter. But it was one of those unexpected oops. All right, let's see. Last thing I'm going to try and do is this isn't the tool I would like to use, but it's what I have. I'm going to just do a little blend right down here in this corner. Hopefully. Because I don't have the right tool, but it's good. It's good enough. You get the gist of it. There, that's what I want. And I will go back in there real quick and fix that. Oh, I hit it. Shoot. That's because that one's deeper. Well, now so there you go. There's a design opportunity. There's an aluminum ring inside of that. How did I get it in there? That's what you... shoot, look at that. That's too bad. Well, anyway. Yeah. So, it's blended. What was I going to do? All right, so, you would sand that up, and typically I like a little more detail down there, but not bad. It's not the worst thing in the world. The only other thing I have to show you, it's not the way I typically do it, but I did try it to see if it would work. And so what the hell, we got a few extra minutes. Let's try it and see if it works. I'm going to try and cut that angle while it's still on the lathe. What I do at home is I literally take a block of anything and I run a curve through with the bandsaw, and then I set my finial down on that. Say the saw curve is like here. I set the finial down at whatever angle I think is appropriate, and set that on the block, and ever so lightly I push it through the bandsaw. But I don't use a typical wood blade. I bought some what's the new blade they come out with? It's they're not Starrett's, but they're Timberwolf. Yeah, I was at Woodcraft one day, and they had some Timberwolf blades that were. My saw takes a 133-inch blade, and they were 3/8 or half-inch, I forget. I think they're 3/8, but they're 10 to 14 teeth per inch, so they're really like a metal cutting blade. So it worked really well cutting this on the bandsaw. With a coarser blade, I think you might have trouble. But what I have this little flush cutting saw that I bought one of my tool trunk days up in Maine at the Institute for Shelter or whatever they call it up there, and it's a great little saw. So by hand, I'm going to attempt to cut that angle, and then mercifully this demonstration will be over with. I've had worse demos than this, I guess. That's for me. I left. I want to cut my angle right about there. I'm coming. This is my leftover wood, and I'm coming right to the point where I started to create the sweep. And if you ever want to make golf tees, this is a good way to do it too. Okay, let's see what happens. So I just kind of took that and eyeball it where I want it to go. And get it started ever so slightly, lightly, because it's going to twist. Now I just grab a hold of the waste wood that I want to get rid of, and I use that to support it. Very light cuts, no force. The tailstock is just sitting there. It's really not even doing anything. As you can see, it's still spinning. Yeah, yeah. Blood red. Then this will be blood wood. Real blood wood. Okay, so now there's one more step. Oh, look at that. It came right out. Hot dog. There's one more step I forgot. So we got to take that off. I did, here. I want you to really pay attention to that accent ring I put in there. So I want to take and face off the back side and make it fit into there. No, I'm like I said, I'm not going to tell anybody. Hey, you know what? I nicked myself with the saw. I'm just going to take a piece of, I don't know if that's the one I made the piece out of or not, but another small piece of threaded rod. I'm going to stick it just a little bit sticking out. I'm going to take that and screw it on there. And I'm hopefully going to create a tenon that'll fit in that hole. This is where the machinist part kicks in. Roland, you're a machinist. Where is he? You'll never believe. You know, I literally just I made the hole round this morning just to make sure it was round. It's exactly 1 1/8 inches. That's 1.125 within a half a thousandth. Not that it has to be that, but I'm like, I expected it was going to be like, 150 or something. I don't know, some cockeyed number. All right. I don't know how this is going to work, because I think it'll work, but let's find out. I want to go to 1 inch 150. Yeah, good idea. Oh, we got plenty there. Okay. What'd I do with the tool rest? I know. Let's see what we got there. A little bit more. We're gonna go just a skosh. Again, you can shape this collar, any size, shape, design, whatever you want. I'm actually going to go to the bandana and finish this. This is just because. So I'm not. I would, if I were at home, I would probably shape this so that it kind of, either keeps itself up a little. Can you hear me? This one's a little bit elevated or longer so that it hides the joint. But again, that's something that you can do whatever you want to do. And totally up to you which way you think you want it to look. I'm just going to do it that way to be done. So we'll get the Badan and we will put that. Does anybody ever use one of these, the Badan tool, for anything? Tool to have around in your box for various things. Light cuts though, because I'm not holding very much here. In there. I think I want to be right about there. It might still be big, but that's okay. Let's take wood away. Oh man, I couldn't be any closer. Okay. I told you 3 steps ago that was the last step, but we got one more. I'm just going to go in and clean some of that out I'm going to anyway. I'm just going to put a little radius on it. Has a more pleasing look to it when you take the finial off. Yep. Right, get that bevel on there, Mike. There we go. Just a skosh more. Let's see. Just a skosh. Hey, you know the other advantage to doing the demo first? We can get this mess cleaned up before 9:30. Okay. Perfect timing. Perfect timing. Almost, gee. It's right in the corner. Just ever so slightly. Yeah. That's not going to get seen anyway. That's going to get glued in here. Okay. So now everything's done. You say, oh boy, it's all. Get yourself some epoxy. You glue that in like that. You screw that one in with the X. And there, my friends, is a finial lid with a collar. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah. Sometimes I have done that in the collar. If it tears out too badly, I drilling the hole a little bit oversized. I haven't found a need to do that, but for some reason the wood tore, and I don't remember. I don't remember if it's even in one of these, but I had one a couple. Yeah, I have done that, and that's a good idea. Is if you've got a brand new tap that you just bought to tap the holes, and you fill them with CA glue, and then you run that tap through there again. That that glue can be pretty abrasive on the tap, so you want to be careful of that. But yeah, that does help. That it?